Hi, and welcome to the weekly predictions based on astrology for the week of July 26, 2021. In terms of the stock market direction, I think Monday is going to be a down day, and then we will have a major rally up approximately 27th through the 29th, especially on the 28th and 29th. And then I think there will be a reversal in the direction on Friday, the 30th, to most likely down. Regardless of the direction, I definitely wanted to point out that sometime in the middle of the week, again, most likely 28th and 29th, are going to see really major market moves, and it will be along the lines of investors just kind of, having like a feeding frenzy, so to speak, where many are jumping in onto what they perceive to be an amazing opportunity, and perhaps, some asset may go up, and then at the end, like on Friday especially, or even on Thursday, many will basically dump that asset and take their profits. Let's see. So for Monday, as I mentioned, even last week, Friday through Monday, I expected increased focus on things like gold and silver, with gold and silver going down in value. I did see that they did go down in value on Friday. On Monday, I believe they were going up very slightly. Let's see, then on the 23rd, also through the 26th for the US, there may be increased focus on things like retail sales, communication, transportation, businesses, as well as financial policies and just financial institutions. And there we may expect some increased news about things like loans, debt, rates, and there may be some increased regulations in those areas, or some not very, well-received financial policy may be in the news, and arguments over, the expenses that need to occur, or over concerns of, federal deficit, concerns about increasing debt. So there may be some, again, increased regulation on one hand. On the other hand, there may be some sort of disagreements between perhaps one side that is looking to take care of some issue right away, and saying, okay, we need to make this financial decision. However, there will be a sort of another side, another, energy that will be cautioning that the change should be happening after some maybe more thorough review to ensure safety and security of some of the funds, or to make sure that there is like say bank safety, or safety of somebody's valuable commodity or something is not jeopardized. On Tuesday, on the 27th, is when we may hear or see, this wave, which I believe will be felt the strongest on the 28th and 29th, of some sort of, like I said, feeding frenzy, or some really big sort of, or rather, increased volatility, and especially on the afternoon of on Tuesdays when it may start. And there may also be increased news on Tuesday related to like wet weather, excessive maybe floods, excessive precipitation, gas, oil, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, navy, anything to do with water, marine life, things like that. And there may be concerns about something being kind of too much, maybe too much water, too much precipitation. The floods are, washing things away. And also there may be maybe too much oil, or too many ships are trying to enter the port, or some infection is spreading, so too many people are infected, or too many people perhaps are addicted to some drug or chemical is spreading, perhaps again either through a leak, or just maybe, say, soil gets contaminated either through the flood or through some other kind of event, perhaps just, using too much fertilizer inappropriately. But anything that's related to this Neptunian kind of domain, on Tuesday, there might be concerns about some excess related to that. On the 27th through 30th, like I said, there may be important announcements, and both globally but also specifically for the US. The announcements for the US specifically may be related to areas like retail sales and social media, anything that's like online app, a phone app, and also communication, transportation in general. So again, this could be social media, some sort of newspapers, TV company, or it could be anything to do with transportation, so cars, car manufacturers, airlines, trains, airspace, and also anything to do with like young people and learning or education in particular. So perhaps an app that's geared towards young people, or app that helps with, say, getting education online, or transportation and education, perhaps transporting students to school or attending school, remotely, anything along those lines. And the announcement may have to do, for the US specifically, with some sort of maybe either innovation or a new development that maybe it was either unforeseen, or it is really like cutting edge and something that's very kind of novel and involves some really high-end technology. So it could be either something to do with actual like a vehicle that gets like an upgrade, and suddenly it's much more high-tech with the use of, I don't know, new measuring devices or tools and some AI algorithm that now it can perform, like maybe an autopilot of some sort, or something that can now, fly where it couldn't fly before, go that much faster, or something that can take advantage of some online, presence that perhaps wasn't doing that before. And something, again, can be much more sort of high tech or faster or more innovative, and there may be a lot of excitement about that. And again, that particular asset may go up in value because, again, of this excitement. And the specific situation may also involve either something legal or laws, or foreign connections, such as foreign travel. So it could be, for example, that announcement be related to expansion overseas, or enabling kind of more convenient or effective transportation and travel over long distances. Or it could be related to, again, some legal barrier, perhaps either being removed, or some changes regarding, say, again, some laws that govern like traveling or transporting goods overseas. So perhaps some import-export news that, again, now present some sort of opportunity for, again, company that is related to something along the lines of retail sales, communication, transportation, and or for young people and education. So let's see. So another, unfortunately, kind of more negative sort of manifestation at this time, the 27th through the 30th, may be related to weather, and again, travel, especially long distance travel and or shipments. So the weather at this time may be excessively hot, with increased probability of like just droughts and fires, and even perhaps volcanic eruption, something that really pollutes the air or decreases the air quality, and that may cause delays in terms of travel. And separately, travel, especially long distances, may be impacted, and it also, of course, has to do with deliveries of goods, and that can be impacted just in general because either there's some bad weather of all sorts, or an attack, or some dangerous, risky situation. It may even involve like an accident, or it may involve concerns about some vehicle or type of vehicle experiencing some difficulty with, say, its engine or some part, and it may even involve, say, a car manufacturer, recalls a particular type of car, or there are concerns about a particular part in some airplane not functioning as it should, perhaps because, again, it cannot withstand excessive stress due to high speeds, or it overheats and basically breaks under pressure, or again, it gets, inflames or explodes under pressure. So something along those lines. So there may be obviously those kind of negative news as well. And if so, obviously, then I would imagine that the value of, say, stock for such a company would go down. And again, at the same time, it may be volatility at this time, where even if something were to go down, it will be then picked up by investors who would be looking for a great opportunity to pick something like that. And indeed, I think, again, the direction of 28th, 29th will reverse on the 30th. Most likely, I think it will be up first and then down, but even if it's the other way around, I'd say there will be this volatility with the reversal from midweek to the end of the week. So basically on Friday, as I was mentioning, maybe the time where things will be taking a little bit more of a, I wouldn't say relaxed, but a little bit more of a practical sort of mood may set in at that point. So 28 and 29 especially may see this really crazy excitement and maybe say there's a deal that may go through, like a sale or an acquisition or expansion overseas, or like I said, sale and acquisition could be related to a US business, but it doesn't have to be. And again, could be, most likely it will be like communication, transportation, something along the lines of social media, young people, something that is maybe for the young audience, but also is very high tech at the same time. And then say there's a deal or this new program or new project or a new service or a new, I don't know, type of vehicle or something like that, or a gadget may be announced, and it's very exciting. But then once that deal is announced or once that project is out on Friday, this excitement may be sort of diminishing, and a more practical approach may come up where the questions may be raised like, okay, so now what are the actual expected profits from it? What are the projected earnings? Or if there's an associated expense, how much, what will cost? What are the steps to actually make something happen? And so, like I said, I think that there's a reversal because, again, the excitement will be going down and more kind of practical type of questions will arise. So now let's take a look at the brief glance ahead at the remaining sort of weeks, months in 2021. Just some highlights that I have come across so far. August and December may see sort of peaks in the value of gold and probably also silver around 9th of August, maybe an intermediate high for gold and or silver, most likely gold. And then mid-December around the 15th, plus minus a few days, I think maybe the kind of a peak in the value of gold and probably also silver for the year. And after that, I think things may be looking a little bit, I wouldn't say worse for it, but it may not be quite, there will not be this driving influence that we have this year, specifically for gold to be going up. Around August 8th through the 10th, there may also be increased focus on oil and gas, also pharmaceuticals, various chemicals as well. And for oil-related news, there may be a brief drop in the oil prices around 8th through the 10th of August. And this may have to do with either some changes in either laws or international deals that govern transportation of related products, like of oil, for example. Then for the US specifically, the time period from the end of August, from about around August 24th through the end of February of next year, may see some increased either confusion or uncertainty, or some changes related to things like Navy, ships in general, and partnerships with international partners. And there may be some kind of a greater than usual probability of either miscommunication or some uncertainty as far as where are things going, who is in or who is out, who is the partner, what are the terms of kind of support, and or specific situations may involve there being excessive kind of number of, if there's like an exercise of some sort, or just bad weather, for example, there might be, problems seeing basically another ship or seeing what the situation is about. And so there's a greater than usual probability for some, again, situation that involves miscommunication that may lead to like an accident, or there being like an oil spill or something, just kind of some confusion may basically, or maybe loss of, I don't know, some radar or something like that, perhaps due to, bad weather or some other situation. And basically, the worst case scenario could be there's like an accident. And I guess the best situation is just that maybe if there's like a pending agreement and there's, desire to establish like who's responsible for what, or what should be the steps for, I don't know, engaging with partners. Those things may not be very clear at this time. And one would have to wait until like March of 2022 for those things to kind of get resolved, those uncertainties. Let's see, globally, the end of August seems to be like an okay month so far. The only thing is that right around the very end of August, around August 30th through September 3rd, may be a little bit of a tense time, and especially around the 3rd of September, where there may be concerns about oil prices, and also again potential for like oil spill or some chemical kind of related industrial disasters. Not necessarily a very huge scale, but just kind of more problems related to like spill of chemicals or fire at an oil rig, or some situation that involves Navy, like Navy personnel, or medical lab, where there's like just an accident, or something goes wrong, or spike in infectious diseases, for example. And at the same time, there may be concerns about, like I said, price of oil and gas, and some fighting over it. So maybe OPEC producers may be fighting at that time, and I think there may be a dip in oil prices at the same time, but also dip in the market, especially on the 3rd of September. But the entire week of August 30th looks somewhat tense to me. After that, at the very end of September, so September 28th through 30th, especially approaching towards the 28th, we may see oil prices then rising, and they may peak around the 30th. By peak, I mean just like intermediate peak, around 30th of September, and after that reverse back to down, and the drop, like I said, after the 30th of September could be in some concerns about perhaps increasing numbers of like people who have some infectious disease or epidemic, basically being again in the news. So concerns about some travel problems or some restrictions, and so therefore after the 30th of September, oil prices may go down slightly. And again, there may be another oil prices drop around the end of October, 25th through the 28th, and that could be due to basically excessive availability of supplies. Then again, at the end of November, 27th through the 30th, there may be increased news about, again, oil, gas, pharmaceuticals, but also various infectious diseases, chemicals, Navy, beverages, movies, movie theaters, etc. And there again, there may be some negative news, such as like travel restrictions, concerns about the epidemic, numbers rising, and there just can be like necessarily a big event, but rather just kind of concerns in that area may continue to have an impact on inventories rising, and because of that excessive availability of, I guess, oversupply of perhaps available oil, the price may go down at the end of November. Then right around 15th of December seems to be an important time, plus minus a few days. Both, like I said, there may be some important announcements out of the US about some sort of financial policies, news about the value of US dollar, and also a peak, perhaps for the entire year, for the value of gold and also possibly silver. And let's see, and at the same time, right around then, we will have a transit of Mars conjoining south node of the moon, and that typically corresponds with various accidents, especially like maybe an airplane accident or train accident or something along those lines, and also just explosions, fires, military escalations, protests. So there may be just a little bit of an unsettled time around mid-December, and generally the second half of December we will have a sort of a pass of Saturn square Uranus that will be somewhat more precise, and that also will contribute to, again, just kind of perhaps suppressing the stock market and also increasing kind of sense of some tensions, protests, etc. And now let's talk about just a very brief glance ahead at 2022 and a few new ideas that I had about what might happen in 2025. So for 2022, I mentioned before, we will have Jupiter entering back into Pisces right around the 29th of December of 2021. It will briefly retrograde into Aquarius right around the 28th of July. So as what we're seeing all over the world, a lot of floods. They hopefully will kind of reduce, the news about floods will reduce, August through the end of December. However, it will pick up back in end of December and especially through around mid-May. And right around the 4th of April may be particularly kind of a difficult time, both in terms of just like floods, excessive precipitation. But I expect much stronger, snowfalls in the winter, obviously in the places where it's winter, in January through whatever this spring may bring floods. And for China specifically, spring and into even August of 2022, there may be unfortunately continuing strong floods, and any areas that had experienced floods around July may again experience those same floods or excessive precipitation in the end of December and into January. But like I said, 4th of April looks particularly bad globally for that. Another difficult time for globally in 2022 is August 1st, and like I said, in early April, things may have to do with like floods, perhaps a large oil spill. And in August, around August 1st, yet again, there may be bad weather and industrial large-scale disaster, but that time it may involve something that's flying like an airplane or some drone or rockets or electricity or engine malfunctioning or even just some explosion with some fire at some power plant or something along those lines, something that is moving really fast and comes to an abrupt stop because again there's lack of electricity, lack of power being supplied to some moving parts. And then in mid-September through the end of October of 2022, especially around October 11, there may be yet again time of like some protest or tensions. We will again have Saturn squaring Uranus a little bit more precisely, and so again some potentially down overall down sort of trend in the stock market, or just kind of concerns about excessive governmental regulation of say cryptocurrencies, things of that nature, things that are just a little bit more depressing to the markets. And at the same time, right around mid-October, especially October 7th through the 15th, and especially, like I said, around the 11th of October, there may also be some maritime transportation accidents, fire at an oil rig, anger over oil prices or some arguments about what the oil prices should be, a gas leak, chemical spill, and also unfortunately flare-up of infectious diseases. And more generally, with Jupiter being in Pisces, basically in the January through mid-May 2022, and especially conjuncting Neptune that rules Pisces right around early April, we may expect increased news about anything to do with infectious, epidemics, contaminated like water supply, spill of chemicals. And it doesn't have to be necessarily even COVID-19. It could be perhaps if there's like a tsunami or floods, contaminate soil, and then people drink dirty water and they can get, cholera or something like that. So it could be any of the above. It doesn't have to be specifically related to like a flu or something like that. But in general, this may be a season where anything that has to do with any sort of bad stuff, bacteria, whatever, viruses that multiply or thrive in mold or whatever in wet, damp sort of areas, they unfortunately may be multiplying more than usual when Jupiter will be going through Pisces, which will be again late December 2021 into about mid-May. There will be a brief period where also Jupiter will retrograde back into Pisces in 2022 as well. That's September, October, I think, sometime of 2022. let's see. And then for globally, but I guess specifically for the US, the years of 22 and 23 may be particularly significant because for the US, it will be corresponding to what's called a Pluto return, meaning that Pluto is going to go back to its chart, to the same place where it was in its natal chart when the country was founded. And at the same time, there will be a transit of Neptune, again, floods and kind of lack of clarity about certain things, confusion, going through its fourth house, which has to do with things like banks, savings, but also farmlands or land in general, homeland security, food supply, agriculture. So obviously, if say there are excessive floods, which may occur specifically in early 2022, it may contaminate soil, and obviously that may affect agriculture. And of course, then there will be concerns about, say, food security, things of that nature. And floods may be occurring globally, but for the US, again, with specifically transit of Neptune through its fourth house, it may also affect things like say real estate prices, and again things may be underwater in the sense that I guess the value may be, and I wouldn't say necessarily even go down, most likely it may go down due to confusion, not necessarily because of some rates, but rather because there's some uncertainty in the air, or literally like things are flooded. There may be some concerns about real estate related to that. And Pluto is a planet that typically rules really drastic changes where the old just really needs to be completely revamped. And unfortunately, there's a tendency of kind of throwing the baby with the bath water because Pluto is just very kind of, I guess, dictatorial in that sense. So the energy of Pluto may feel very harsh, but then the good thing is that sort of the phoenix, rises out of ashes. If something wasn't working, that maybe it's a good thing to kind of get rid of that and start anew. And so there's a hope for like a fresh start, even though in the process things may get a little bit more, I guess, difficult. And as I mentioned, 2025 seems to be quite an important year. I guess I skipped 2024. I'm not sure. I'm sure it will be a very good year as well. But 2025 really is a significant year to mention because we will have, on the one hand, Neptune entering into the new sign of Aries, meaning it's changing its sign. So a whole different energy for Neptune, leaving its own size of its rulership, going into the sign that may bring, droughts, kind of, Neptune water drying out in this hot sign of fire sign of Aries, but also different sort of focus on, oil and gas, but focus on how they're used perhaps in some different manner completely, maybe for different purpose, but also maybe some advancements when it comes to treating certain either parts of the body, like related to head, for example, or treating certain kind of ailments, maybe addictions, or anything to do with poisons, chemicals, maybe chemical burns. There may be some really good advancements as far as how those things are treated. At the same time, in terms of economy, we will also have Saturn joining Neptune and entering into Aries as well. And so both planets changing sign, again, just focus on all things Aries, being on the one hand anything to do with military, but also sports and just new beginnings in general. But also conjunction of Neptune and Saturn typically corresponds with major reversals in the oil prices. And as I mentioned, Neptune changing sign also, meaning that the nature of how Neptunian areas, such as oil, gas, various chemicals that are derived from them, I guess, can be used somehow completely differently. And this may have to do with just advancements in science, or it may have to do with concerns about environmental pollution. Either way, there'll be some major changes, and I think it may result in perhaps a large drop in the oil prices. Either way, I think 2025 may be a major sort of big point reversal for oil prices. And unfortunately, at the same time, we may expect some natural disasters, kind of especially those related to water, either water drying out or oil spill of some major proportions, or some really major flash floods, or like a disaster that involves like some mine contaminating against some water, or like a really major blizzard. All of those things is a great, increased probability of occurring in 2025. And in particular, there are multiple times of that year where those things may occur, but as early as January 18th, then February 1st, February 14th of 2025, we may see things like, again, like a major blizzard, for example, with major power outages, and or a flash flood, again, that is really dangerous, or a really major earthquake with, again, something to do with like tsunami, or earthquake that occurs near a country that is like an island, or is on the coast somewhere. And at the same time, with Saturn and Pluto together, there may be also a peak in the news about some sort of epidemic or concerns about healthcare. Again, the good news, I guess, with those two planets being in Aries, that whatever comes up may be spreading quickly, but also the cure for it may also be developed that is either fast, acting, or it may catch up with whatever the situation is also quickly. And again, that's why I said there may be some advancements in medicine at the same time, and because there will be a need to address something that is like there is going to be a need to act fast. Let's see. And so specifically for the early time of 2025, we will have a situation where we have Neptune conjuncting a north node of the moon, and that typically corresponds with like major events that are affecting large numbers of people, and they're related to Neptune. So it could be like a religious nature, for example, or will have to do with like, say, maritime transportation, oil, but unfortunately it could be also like oil spill or chemical disaster, or really major weather event that involves excessive precipitation. So some of the previous examples of similar sort of events where we had Neptune conjuncting one of the nodes of the moon, plus some other minor aspects that kind of were supporting that, were like flood in Johannesburg in 2016. There was also Hurricane Matthew in 2016. Fire at the ExxonMobil refinery, where there was a chemical release. Then there was also the Manga Tipopo Canyon disaster, where there was like a flash flood that killed some students and teachers. I guess happened to be there, the wrong place, the wrong time. But also a larger scale disaster where like the 2008 Sichuan earthquake. We also had in 2016 there was also an earthquake in actually near Fukushima 6.9. It was like basically it's thought of as a aftershock from the main earthquake that occurred in March of 2011. But then back in 2000, in January of 2000, there was this North American blizzard, apparently super strong. And also in January of 2000, there was this Baia Mare gold mine cyanide spill. That was also supposedly like the largest, per Wikipedia, largest disaster in Europe since Chernobyl, at least. Again, that's what Wikipedia says. Either way, certainly the time of 2025 looks like it's going to be another time of major kind of either geopolitical kind of changes or environmental issues kind of really taking precedence due to either concerns about the weather. Again, there might be concerns about droughts, contamination of water, lack of clear water, but also change in how sort of the oil is used. Again, this could be due to concerns about the pollution, or it could be just because, again, some scientific innovations are made and now things can be used more efficiently or used for a different purpose, or even the water can be used differently, perhaps through more recycling, or used, for, say, deriving energy for powering vehicles, and therefore maybe there's going to be less need for oil, for example. So either way, 2025 is definitely going to be like one of these interesting big years coming up ahead. And I guess I should look at 2024 because it seems like it's a year that's being left behind or left out. In any case, I hope you had enjoyed this weekly review and are having a fantastic week. I'll catch you guys later. Come back and check me out next week, I guess.